I'd like to call the January 19th, 2021, 9 o'clock meeting in order. Everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Ms. Harris has not joined us this morning. She may come in a little bit. We don't know. I haven't heard anything. Does any member of council have a conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with regards to any item on the agenda? If so, please state at this time. Mr. Borman?
No.
No.
Mr. Corbett?
No.
Mr.
No.
Phillips? All right. Moving on. Amendment and approval of the draft agenda. Does anyone have anything they need to add or anything? Everything fine?
I'm good with it.
Everybody good?
Change it for me.
All right.
Do we have to accept it? I move we accept the draft agenda.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Council discussion. Any member of council have anything they'd like to speak about?
I have two quick things.
Go ahead, sir.
One is to just let everybody know that on behalf of the council, I've submitted the advocacy goals for the North Carolina League of Municipality, 10 issues to be taken up with the Legislative Assembly that hopefully would help and improve and benefit Sunset Beach and other municipalities. And the second one is that we did submit the grant application for a $30,000 grant to the North Carolina Resilient Coastal Communities Program to put us in a position to possibly get the grant to do engineering and planning work, survey work on things that we could do for climate control measure improvements. That's all.
All right. No one else has anything. We'll move on to our public comments on agenda items. I think we have two people in the back. Mr. Corbett, would you like to speak and tell them whoever to step up and go from there, please, sir?
If you're ready, step up. You guys want public comments too at the beginning? Are you together or? Okay. Go ahead, Carol. Your name and address.
Carol Santavica, 9109 Forest Drive Southwest, Sunset Beach. I have come today to speak to item 6D, number 3 on your agenda. I want to make sure that you understand how serious some of this is to the residents of Sunset Beach. I spent many years on the planning board, and one of the things that shocked me on the planning board was that almost all, if not all, of Sea Trail is in the MR3 zone. My question has always been, what happens if we get a big hurricane that comes through and takes half of one street? That MR3 zoning would allow condos to be put up across from single-family houses. We talked at length for some years about changing the zoning to what actually exists, but that seemed to be an insurmountable project. I think even before Tom Vincennes came on the planning board, who Tom is chairman now, we created something called an open space zoning district, which limited what could be done, how the golf courses could be developed should the golf courses the owner of the golf courses want to develop that property. In the debacle of the last rewrite of the UDO before Gary Parker left, and it was a debacle, we lost a lot of things that were in our zoning code. At the time, we were not so very worried because we had a lot of institutional memory here. So as things came, the plan was that as things came up, whenever our people who had that institutional memory had time, they would be reviewing that new edition of the UDO with a fine-tooth comb to figure out what else might be missing, other than things that came up through zoning requests. Then we lost our institutional memory. So the open space zoning is gone forever. So there's no protection as to what can happen to those golf courses should a developer come in and want to do that. Sea Trail is the largest community within our little town. If the nature of Sea Trail changes, the nature of our town changes. Right now, we have a new developer in Sea Trail, and from what I can tell, he's doing wonderful things. And that community may finally fulfill its vision. However, it is still MR3 zoning, and we still don't have an open space zoning category to manage the changeover of the golf courses to other types of development. So we're pretty much open to whatever anybody wants to do there.
Ms. Carroll, if you can, tie it off for us, please. Your 3 minutes up, okay? Thank you. Go ahead. Finish up.
Okay. I think it's very important what the planning board has suggested about making all multifamily a special use in wherever it goes, in whatever zoning district it is. It's not to create a heavy hand. It is to give the town some ability to satisfy the residents' vision of their town, the town council's vision of their town, and it's just a part of the zoning code. It's just another guarantee that our town is going to end up what we want it to be. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's another.
Okay, who's up next? Please state your name and your address as you come up to the mic.
David Hutnick, 2069 Manor Park Drive, Calabash, North Carolina. Jojo Taragna is here with me today, and we both own Coastal Race Productions, which puts on the annual Run Sunset Beach event scheduled for March 27th. It's on your agenda. Just wanted to say, first of all, that we're here as it comes up on the agenda. If you guys have questions, we're here to answer those questions. And the number one goal for us is to put on a fun and safe event. So we put together the proposal that should be in your packet today, going over how we are abiding by the executive order based on square footage of the area, the 12 people per 1,000 square feet, and following all the CDC recommendations for events like ours that are being put on. So we put on 7 events a year, and this is actually our first event. We called the company Run Sunset Beach when we first started. So we're from this area. I live in Calabash. Jonna lives in Calabash, but we both lived in Sunset Beach before we moved. And this is one of my favorite events. So we put together a lot of fun, safe guidelines to follow the CDC principles. I hope you guys have had a chance to review them, but just want to go over a couple quick things. We have put on a successful event in Calabash for the Turkey Trot that followed a lot of these guidelines, and we've continued to improve on our protocol to keep people safe, such as more physical distancing protocols, mask requirements, of course, which were followed greatly at the Calabash Turkey Trot, as well as our BFF Pink Ribbon Run in September. We've put together a lot of ideas in regards to packet pickup of how people can stay separated to get their bib before the race. But most importantly, executing this, we have a lot of plans as far as ambassadors, signage, communication plan, how we're going to keep people separated before and after the event in the park. So if you guys have any questions for us, we are here to answer them, and we hope that we can put on a safe event here in Run Sunset Beach in March.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else back there have it?
No.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to our old business. seasonal parking regulations enforcement proposal. Chief Claymore, you have the mic.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ken.
Good morning. The document that I've handed to each of you is still a work in progress because I'm waiting on, as we'll see as we get through this document, some proposals for, I guess, an alternative program that could be used. But the purpose of this, as you know, Councilwoman Harris had presented a gentleman with reef parking who manages paid parking in North Myrtle Beach, and I did contact that company as well, and as we get a little bit through this proposal, we'll talk about reef. But the purpose of this is, at the council's direction, to come up with an option for a civilian parking enforcement unit. Mainly what I have in front of you, without the proposals from the companies that can assist us with this, is to do this 100% in-house. So currently, the Sunset Beach Police Department is tasked with parking regulations throughout the mainland and the island. And we do a pretty good job of managing that with the short staff that we often have. We write upwards of 700 to 800 tickets a year, and that encompasses, as I mentioned, 365 days, mainland, island, and in addition to other calls for service, being visible in the communities, watching for speed violations, walking into businesses, and so forth. Currently, we try to inform and educate the public, our tourists, our day trippers, to make sure that they know what's expected of them, whether that be through enforcement, and they call after the fact and don't understand why they got a citation for parking on the sidewalk, or for blocking a driveway, or for parking in a bike lane. And we try to work with them to make sure that they know, so the next time they come back to see us, that they park as we expect them to do. That's ultimately what we want, is to make sure that people adhere to the parking guidelines so that we're not having to write a bunch of tickets. Signs are out there. We use our message board throughout the summer to try to inform on busy weekends, to remind people of where they need to be. The violations that we write throughout the year, it's a mixed bag of handwritten citations and citations that are generated through the computer. Those are entered into the system by our individual officers. The citations that are paid, the money is accounted for on the finance side, and then those paid receipts come to our side. We enter those and mark them paid. Persons who don't pay in a timely fashion, we send them a letter and tell them, hey, you haven't paid this, and in order to avoid a fine increase and possibly having to go to court on this, we ask that you pay it. Fines are currently $25 per violation. There's no set increase for non-payment of fine. If it were to be voided and sent to court, then of course the fine would increase. There'd be court costs that go along with that. But that's all handled in-house. The majority of time when people call for clarification, to want to know why they got a citation for parking in a certain area, or where they can park, what they can do to pay the citation, it's handled by myself, it's handled by an assistant chief. The on-duty sergeant will talk to those folks, and as far as the phone calls, just anybody that's in the building that answers the phone. With a civilian parking enforcement unit, I picture this similar to Beach Patrol, where there would be a seasonal staff of part-time employees that were paid to cover the town, and what I'm pitching is from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. throughout the summer, from April 1st through October 31st. I should be able to cover that with 8 personnel, and that would give us the flexibility to overlap on holiday weekends, even some of the weekends where it's busier. Those folks would also be able to enforce parking and help with parking for the markets, for Run Sunset, if that happens, For Sunset at Sunset, any events that the town has, the concert series, where parking is at a premium and people will park wherever they find some green space. The goal, I feel, of this is, and I believe that it's the council's goal as well, is just to have well-regulated parking, not to just go out and issue a ton of citations. The parking enforcement's primary purpose would be for regulation and enforcement on the island, because that's where we have the majority of the problem. The majority of the complaints come in through the island. Like I said, it can be used elsewhere. This staff would be supervised by a member of the police department who would be responsible for recruiting, training, scheduling, vehicle assignment and maintenance, and equipment assignment. The position would have year-round responsibilities. I previously pitched a captain's position in one of my budget proposals, and I feel that that position would be crucial in order to manage the extra workload that's going to come upon us in the summer months with the addition of this parking enforcement unit. A part-time administrative assistant would be necessary in order to handle and process all of the tickets that are written by these folks. These folks are, if the police department is writing 700 to 800 tickets a season, a year, with the amount of staff that we have and the other responsibilities they have, I anticipate the number's going to grow. If we have somebody that's solely focused on parking enforcement. This administrative person could handle billing and coding in the off-season for a year-round part-time administrative position. Billing and coding, social media postings, uniform requisitions, vehicle maintenance scheduling, business line phone calls, and other daily administrative tasks, in addition to the extra workload with the parking citations that come through this unit. Vehicles for this would be necessary. Since they are civilians, they cannot drive a police vehicle. Our UTV is marked as a police vehicle. I have that in an attachment here that we'll see in a minute. A collection company for those that don't pay. As I mentioned, we currently have a system in place where those that don't pay, they're mailed a letter, and we politely ask them to pay to avoid fine increases or a potential of a court appearance. And that's been successful, but there's no other method in place. I feel that contracting with a collection company would be beneficial with the amount of citations that are going to increase. Parking enforcement devices. These civilians are not going to have access to our records management software since they are civilians. There is a handheld device that they can use that will take pictures of the vehicle, can enter all the information in the field, and it'll even spit out a citation for them so we don't have to worry about illegible handwriting. So at this point, I'm looking for direction from the council. I'm not yet saying this is the be-all, end-all because I don't have everything in this packet, as you'll see on page 3 under recommendations. I am asking for a fee change. We would need to adjust the fee schedule. The initial parking citation is currently $25 with no set increase. I'm asking for an increase within 72 hours if that citation is not paid to $50. And if the citation is not paid within 14 days, to increase it to $100. I'm waiting on a proposal from a company by the name of Passport Inc., which is out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'm also waiting on a proposal from a company called Reef Technologies, which is who services North Myrtle Beach, which is the company that Ms. Harris had come and talk at an earlier meeting. These folks could essentially handle the whole thing. I know Reef, for example, said that they can even provide the personnel. We would essentially, I don't want to say we would wash our hands of parking because that would never be the case, but they could manage the entire program. They could provide the personnel, they could write the tickets, they could handle the collections, they can handle the billings, they can do all of it for us. Of course, that comes with a cost. I don't know what that cost is. Passport can do all of that with the exception of providing the personnel. They can give us a server that will manage all the parking, will automatically generate letters to those who don't pay. They can handle the collections of the money. They would just mail a check to the town for violations that are paid. Both of these companies build in a fee, which covers, part of it would cover the cost of the program, and part of it, of course, covers their end of it. I don't exactly know those numbers. A lot of that is based on volume. So if we write X number of tickets, it might be a wash. And if we write more than what they anticipate, then there could be a potential for some revenue there. I feel that if we manage this ourselves, that we're going to have better communication with the residents, better communication with the folks that come to visit Sunset Beach, versus a robot, more or less, that's employed by an outside company that's coming in only to write parking tickets. I think it's important if these civilians are on patrol for violations, if they see somebody committing a violation, that they flag them down and say, "Sir, ma'am, that's a great parking spot, but can you move over just a couple of feet so you're out of the bike lane? You're blocking a driveway. You're on the sidewalk." I don't know if Reef and Passport, if their employees are going to go that far, or if they're just going to kind of hide in the bushes and wait for somebody to commit a violation and put a ticket on the windshield. Because that's not going to stop the people calling here and complaining about, "Why did I get this ticket? There was no sign that said I couldn't block a driveway. There was no sign that said I couldn't park on the sidewalk." I've said since day one, I prefer education over enforcement. And I think that's the goal here of what we want, is to have a regulated system of parking. And I think if our own people are doing that, if we train the people that are going to be out there putting the tickets on the windshields, if they see somebody, or even if they're in the middle of writing that ticket and somebody walks out and says, "Hey, officer, that's my car. Can we talk about this?" I do it every summer. If I'm in the middle of a ticket, I have an opportunity to engage with somebody and I can inform them how to fix the problem, so each year when they come back, I don't continue writing tickets. That's what I want. That's what I would prefer. The attachments that are here, attachment A discusses personnel if we were to manage this in-house. You'll see a breakdown there of an estimated cost with benefit for seasonal personnel, $32,340. That's at $10 an hour for seasonal staff. That is in line with what Beach Patrol does for their seasonals. I have an administrative assistant position in the next column, or next section. That's a part-time position with the max hours of 1,000 for the year at a rate of pay of $12 an hour. Total with benefits estimated at $13,200. And then promotion of a current employee at the pay grade 17. Total estimated budget increase for that position would be between $5,000 and $6,000, depending upon the person that was promoted. Total estimated increase to budget for personnel is $51,540. Attachment B, as in boy, shows a proposal for the purchase of vehicles for this parking enforcement unit if we were to keep this in-house. I'm looking at used vehicles that have, each of these that I'm showing here were very well maintained. I believe one of them is under 10,000 miles, but these are used vehicles. And just as an example, something that's fuel efficient, possibly a hybrid, a Kia Soul, which can be purchased around $13,000 locally, or a Toyota Prius, which runs around $15,000. Total estimated vehicle budget would be $30,000. So to keep this in-house as proposed, without any additional equipment, without any software to manage it, if we keep it with the software we have, is around almost $82,000 for the inception of it. The one-time cost of the vehicles, we'd have nothing but gasoline and maintenance going forward, with an annual cost of roughly $52,000 a year. And again, this is in the preliminary stages. I'm looking for ideas, suggestions, more direction from council at this point. This is not to make a decision on today. I really would like to hear back from these two companies and see what they can offer. I had originally pitched to them the second meeting in January. We pushed that back, so I'm shooting for a February meeting. So I'm hopeful that this week I have the proposals from both of those companies, and we can add it to an upcoming agenda packet for February, so that hopefully with any changes or suggestions or direction that's given today, I can come back in February with what everyone would like to see. Questions?
Go ahead.
Well, I have several things. First of all, parking is a safety issue. Always catches my hearing aid. Sorry. Parking is a safety issue. Yeah, I've never considered it to be a money-making issue. I'd like parking fines to cover the cost, so it isn't any expense to to our town residents. I mean, we do welcome visitors here, but we can't provide parking for everybody. We can't even provide parking for our town residents. Once you get the numbers from these companies, we can compare the cost of the town doing it or having whichever company we do it. And if the company was to do it all, I don't know. This has been an issue for such a long time, and I wish I had an answer, but I don't. I think this is a good presentation, Chief, and I'm looking forward when you get the rest of the information. And then we'll have to make a decision where we're going to go. But I do welcome this. This is way past due. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we, Chief, thank you for putting this together. It gives us a lot to think about. If we promote one of our officers up to captain, are we creating a empty billet that we need to fill and add another person to our staff?
Perhaps. I feel that I can shift around existing personnel to cover the vacancy. I don't believe that immediately that we would feel the need, such as this summer, for example, to backfill a position. I feel that we can shift around personnel and we would be fine. I know I mentioned this is for another discussion, of course, but with all the growth in town, it's a conversation that we're probably going to keep having just because of our numbers. But with this program going forward, we can manage with what we have.
And what kind of, because we're dealing in combination with visitors and beach, does the accommodation fund cover this, or does it come out of our regular taxes? Lisa?
The accommodations tax could cover some of this. The accommodations tax could cover some of this.
It's still not working.
The accommodations tax could cover some of this.
Okay. Are our traffic tickets, the collection and the process that you put together there, it appears our traffic tickets are not tied into the state DMV
That's correct.
program?
They're written through the town's ordinance, so they do not go to court. It's internal. It's all managed internal. So they would have to, in essence, be voided, and a state citation would have to be issued.
The police department has the ability to write a town ordinance violation or a state citation.
My question is tied in that, you know, some states have mutual agreements, and I know from practical experience that you can get a ticket in Boston, and a year later you can't register your car in a different state because of the agreement between the states.
That's a violator compact agreement, I believe, that you're speaking of, and that's for moving violations.
There's a parking violation.
For a parking violation?
For a parking violation,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know that.
College move-in weekend in Boston, you know.
I don't know that would cover under the violator compact. I would have to look into it to find out if parking would be such the case. Now, if it's a municipal ordinance, Boston, as you speak of,
Yeah.
and the city of Boston says, all right, you have this unpaid parking violation through the city, and until you fix this, you're not going to be able to renew within the city. So our folks that come from Boston and visit Sunset Beach and get a parking citation, I don't know that that would carry over to out of state. And again, I mean, for the town ordinance
Yeah.
violation, it would not.
It
It
would
would have
not.
to be on a state citation. And that's something historically we haven't done since I came here. We started making follow-up contact with folks that don't pay, and the response has been good. I believe we currently have just under 200 citations in the system that haven't been paid, and that's over the course of nearly 4 years. That's pretty good compared to what the number was.
What's the percentage?
I'm sorry?
What's the percent that don't pay?
Percent, I don't know, but I currently have in the system, I believe it's around 189 tickets that haven't been paid, and that's over 4 summers. If you rough, if you rough estimate of 700 to 800 tickets a year, that's pretty good.
I mean, it continues to be a problem. In the summertime, it's a problem, and a magnified safety problem as well because of the congestion and the people coming in. But I mean, we even find, off-season, I mean, in the question about doing this proposal you have here just goes through October.
Correct.
I mean, we still find if you go out between 38th and 40th Street, any given clear day, between 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock, you'll find 5 or 6 violations on a regular basis that are parked out there. So I mean, it continues to be an issue to address. I'm not sure, I think we need more information on the cost to balance
For sure.
this out, because we're talking about $80,000 basically if you get the vehicles to go with it, and plus their operating costs during the course of the year, which is a good chunk of change. How does that, Lisa, again back to you since Tara's not here, how does that impact our overall accommodation tax accounts?
It would be the same as beach patrol coming out of accommodations tax.
I understand that, but I mean, we have a rough idea of what the taxes are going to be in the course of the given year, and could they fit into the budget, the accommodation tax that we have, without having to spill over into to our other accounts, our general fund?
Yes, it would just decrease the amount of accommodations tax that's transferred to the general fund annually. And council will need to keep in the back of your mind that depending on the management hours that will have to go into this program, this could create a position going forward if the person that he chooses is not able to part-time it. You know what I mean?
The admin assistant,
No,
part-time.
the captain. If the captain position turns into be a full-time position just to manage this parking. As you say, it does go into the off-season, the more shoulder season participation we get with residents and tourists continuing to come after what we deem as the season, then that could create more year-round need for this program, and then that would create a hole in his department. So it could be a future addition that would be needed to the police department, if all that makes sense.
The companies that I,
Question about the cost. You said it was 80,000, about 80,000, but
That's without operating cost, without going into additional positions on the police department
That's also the first year.
Yeah.
He said 50,000 at the numbers that's going right now, but the reason it went up was because of the two vehicles, which wouldn't be something that you'd do every year.
correct.
but the seasonal staff, it says here 32. The admin for 13. The pay grade 17, between 50 and 70.
You already got that money in the pay grade, though. It would just be
So
I'm
so
not
that's
mistaken,
just a-
$5,000 to $6,000.
Yeah, the estimated
That's not
budget.
additional money, that's,
No, sir, the estimated budget increase under that bullet that says pay grade 17, it's only $5,000 to $6,000 increase
I see,
for
okay,
existing personnel.
okay.
One of the things too, and of course we don't have it in front of us, but each of these companies build in a fee to help cover the cost of this program. And that's something that could be considered as well if council chooses to build in an administrative fee to each citation that we issue to help offset the cost of everything that's in this packet, whether it be gasoline for the vehicles, administrative assistant cost, supervision costs. That's something that could be built in. Using the number 700, if we write $25 a citation with no fine increase, it's $17,500 that we use toward this program to sustain itself. Of course, not everybody's timely. If the citations build to $50 or $100, if that rate increase is improved by council vote, that would change that number as well. Administrative fees could be built into every citation. Whatever direction the council chooses this should go is the direction that will go with it. Is this going to solve the parking problem? I'd love to stand here and tell you yes. If we do this, if you vote yes today, but it's not. We're still going to have, the way I have it built is for one person to patrol the island, primarily in the summer months. Of course, they will be available for the whole town, but their primary focus is going to be the island, and it's no different than a beach patroller who is on the east end, and there's glass bottles on the west end or loose dogs on the west end. It's going to be the same thing with parking. Of course, they are going to dedicate their entire day to solely looking at parking violations where our police officers are pulled in 10 different directions throughout the day, especially throughout the summertime. So if we have people that can just focus on parking, and they also are an ambassador for the town, so they're working on public relations, and they want people to come back. I don't want to have an interaction, or I don't want any of my police officers to have an interaction with somebody on the beach strand and upset them to the point where they say, I'm never coming back again. That's not what I want. But this is a Band-Aid. I think more education, more enforcement, get the message out to the people that repeat, that continue to come to Sunset Beach. I'm hopeful that they'll understand what's required of them when they visit.
So with what you just said, Chief, was that this proposal, or was that one person dedicated to?
That's this proposal.
That's this
So
proposal.
8 employees, scheduling them as such so that they don't go over the minimum amount of hours that they're able to work, covering 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for the period that's defined in here. It will give us one person a day. 6-hour shifts, I figure. So 2 people a day, but you'll only see one at a time, with the potential of some overlaps on Memorial Day, July 4th and such.
I would hope that the council would agree with me in this, Chief. I would think from a business standpoint, from a financial standpoint, that you would reach out to those companies, get us the numbers there to give us some kind of comparison there, and then we could, go to make a further decision. But I think it's definitely we need
Yes,
to
sir.
see the numbers.
Yes, sir. And we've, I've been through webinars with both companies, talked about what our needs are in Sunset Beach. A paid parking option, as they do in North Myrtle Beach, that the gentleman from Reef pitched for us, in my opinion, isn't going to fix the problem, because what's going to happen is somebody's going to pay $25 to park on the sidewalk, and then they're going to come back out and have another $25 ticket on the vehicle for parking on the sidewalk. Paid parking, just my opinion, I know it was not solicited, is not the solution for this problem. But yeah, I've talked with both of those companies. They're working on proposals. Just any further direction today is what I'm looking for before I come back with a final proposal that will have those numbers, sir.
Just another question. So I thought when we talked about this initially that it was an enforcement proposal, but for more than just parking. So when we had been talking, there were some concerns about speeding vehicles, about golf carts that had children
Sure.
driving them going pretty fast. And
Sure.
so that's not covered in any of this, right?
It's not, and I apologize if I misunderstood, but I don't recall that conversation. Police officers, sworn police officers, would have to be hired in order to do that. Yes, sir. And we have a part-time program, and I'll be honest, since it was approved by this board, it's been a struggle to keep staff that is able to work as much as we need them, because every one of my part-time police officers has a full-time job elsewhere.
Sure.
And of course, on their weekends, they don't always want to come and put the uniform back on and go write parking tickets at the beach. But not freeing up our patrol officers who are on shift from the obligation of parking will give them that freedom to be able to watch for the golf cart violations, the speeding vehicles, and the like.
Okay, thanks. Just one other comment. Your suggestions for fee increases based on a time period of not paying the citation off right away. 72 hours, I think, is a pretty short time period. I mean, I guess that you're trying to get people before they actually leave, right? Is that the idea behind the 72 hours?
If they want to come here and pay it, yes, sir. There'll also be an option to pay online, which is pretty instantaneous. I feel that if somebody tucks that in their glove compartment or in their armrest, that they're likely going to forget about it.
Of course.
But if there's a note on there that says if you pay this now, I'm going to save you a couple bucks. I think Novant does the same thing. If you pay early, you get a 10% discount. So essentially, that's what we're encouraging people to do. Pay it sooner. Let's get this over and done with, and it's going to save you a couple bucks.
Okay.
This is all, every bit and piece of this is this is a living document. So if that's something that the council feels should be amended, then by all means.
If I may, if the council would consider increasing the parking fee schedule that he gave you to begin at 50 instead of 25, so it would be 50, 100, 200, that would cover this program, that cost. The revenue generated from those parking violations would fund this cost.
That might not be a bad idea. Like the chief just said, someone will come down and park on a sidewalk. What does it cost for the paid lots? $10? So for 15 more, they could park right where they wanted.
They could block the beach access and
lug
all their kids
pay
out there.
$25. I don't want to get into towing vehicles at all.
Nor do I. The only time that we tow is if a vehicle is parked where it would be a safety concern. That's the only time that we would tow. If somebody had to get out of their driveway and they were blocked in by a vehicle, we would tow for that purpose. But outside of that, we don't touch them.
Was a parking ticket $50 a couple years back, several years back? Never been 50?
To my knowledge, it's always been 25.
Handicap is 50.
well, I wouldn't consider $25 to be cheap parking, but some might. $50, I think, would make them think twice. I don't. There's no easy answer. And if I can bring something up, last year when we were working on the budget prior to our COVID restrictions, we wanted to hire 2 more police officers. So we'd have 1 more officer on duty every shift. And I think we would have gone ahead with that had it not been for the unknown financial restrictions from COVID. So we'll be in the budget pretty soon. And I'm gonna tell you now, I'm gonna push for those 2 officers.
Well, I think the suggestion to get the information from the commercial companies, hopefully come back to the next meeting, put it on the agenda, give us a time to look at this in closer detail since we just got it this morning, and see if there are other issues that come up, other ideas that come up. Is a good thing to do today.
Yeah, I did not expect an approval of anything today. This is just food for thought, and any suggestions with what's already there as I'm waiting for the proposals from the other companies.
Okay.
Mayor, if I may,
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I would add this to the February 1st agenda for him to bring you the comments from the paid companies. And then add it to the second February agenda for you all to give him a thumbs up or thumbs down. He does need to start hiring and start purchasing if this program is going to kick off April 1st.
Thank you.
Are there any other
Any
questions?
other questions for Chief?
Nope. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Moving on to our next, the scheduled special meetings for January 2021 and 22. Council was requested to schedule a special meeting for Wednesday, January the 21st of 2021 at 2 p.m., Thursday, January 21st, 2021 at 2 p.m., and Friday, January the 22nd, 2021 at 2 p.m. Each meeting will be recessed to the next day. The purpose of the meeting is for council to go into closed session to continue its review of the town administrator's applicants. I think all council has received this, as everybody's schedule seemed to be set up fine to move forward with this.
I just like to let everybody know I may have a conflict on the 22nd that I may not be able to get out of, so that would be the only one I wouldn't be able to attend.
Other than that, everybody else seemed to be fine.
I'm good.
Lisa, do you have anything to add to this? If not, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion?
Nope.
Go ahead.
How long are these meetings anticipated to be?
You have any idea on that, Jim? Lisa, I apologize.
They're scheduled to adjourn by 5 p.m.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So I think when you discussed it earlier, the idea was 1 hour per interview, 1 hour block of time to give us a period of time to do the Zoom, then a little bit of time to discuss it among ourselves, quick break, and then go into the next Zoom. So we do,
Correct.
the idea is doing 3 1-hour sessions.
Correct.
All right, with that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No opposed? Okay, moving on. Revision, consideration of the state of emergency proclamation. Currently, the state emergency proclamation regarding special events for the town reads, Special events in the town park and within the town limits are limited to a maximum of 25 people for an inside event and 50 people for an outside event. During any time, face masks are required and social distancing must be maintained. If the event is a concert, no food vendors will be allowed. Coastal Race Productions, David Hutnick and Joanna Terragana has contacted the town about using the town park for the start, finish, and after party for the Run Sunset Beach race scheduled for March the 27th, 2021. Their proposal was attached. Council was requested to discuss allowing special events in the park and to determine if the amendment to the state emergency needs to be added.
Can I ask, they're both here. Is it possible to bring them in so we can ask questions? There's a lot to be covered on this one.
If you choose to. Mm-hmm.
That'd be fine with me.
Fine with me.
Good.
Okay.
John, send them around outside so they can come in this room.
Could you go around outside and come in? Can't drink coffee. Can't wear glasses.
Come to the mic.
Pulling up at a hot seat.
Thank you guys for having us.
All right, Councilman Corbett, you brought it out, so you want to go ahead and ask the first question?
Sure. I really like the idea. I'll go to the conclusion first. I really like the idea of doing the races. I like the idea, and in the past it's done and brought a lot of business, residents, rentals, meals, and stuff like that into Sunset Beach. I do not like the idea of doing it now in the middle of COVID, and I can go into great detail on that. I guess the first thing to start with is you're expecting over 1,000 people, 1,300 people by your estimate, and you used the total space of 215,000 square feet in the park, and you gave us a sketch that by my estimate looks like you're only using up perhaps a quarter, maybe less of the park, which just takes all of those ratios and changes them significantly. So I think it's not quite accurate to say that all those people fit within the 215,000 square feet unless you're going to assign each one of them a 6x6 block that they stand in all the way through. And we have not yet approved our bi-weekly parks, artisan fairs in the park yet, and they don't come in to bring in nearly that many people as a start. I would like sort of explanation of what the after party consists of, where the porta toilets are going to go, how you're going to maintain 6 feet apart in your starting area, your assembly area, what other resources from the town you would need from this, police, public works, barriers, and that type of thing. I'd also have questions in terms of the other events that you have listed in here that you're going to have. Are they using town facilities as their assembly areas and starting points to go through there? Do you have approvals for all of those? The Wilmington Marathon, is that the one with the New Hanover Regional Medical Center? It starts off with a disclaimer on the webpage that be aware of future announcements, sort of indicating that you don't have approval yet for that one.
Yeah, that's not us.
And so, just as a starter, there's a whole load of things and questions that come to mind before we start talking about interpreting the state of emergency regulations as they apply to our park.
And thank you.
So I'm very concerned about having the event in the park. That's.
First of all, I'd like to just thank you for having us in here today to answer. Thank you for.
Pull that down a little.
You can pull it down there.
Thank you for having us in here today to answer the questions. We have really worked at length at putting together a safe plan that we feel like does is covered under the current executive order. And we are also have been reapproved with this plan to host our Oak Island race, which is February 13th. And so a couple of the things you brought up in the park, you don't foresee people being that spread out in the park to use up all of that area. And I would say partially you are right. In Oak Island, we are using a chalk paint to paint circles, like you said, a square, and you can be in your circle with the group you came with, but it's just another reminder of distancing, as well as we have 5 safety ambassadors throughout the park assuring that people stay separated. So I did just want to pay close note to that while it was on my mind. And also, in regards to that many people in the park, I think throughout the morning, there will never be the full amount in the park at one time with the way we plan to stagger the start and as well as the runners being out on the course. So,
What about the after party then?
Yep, and so our after party, what we're doing in Oak Island is we're spreading out where the barbecue is going to be, where the pizza is going to be, where the beer is going to be. So that kind of gets people in different parts of the park. That helps our separation, having that after party to spread people around. We have plans to put them in separate places here as well to spread people out. So in Oak Island, that's what we're doing. But I will say that our main goal is number one, safety, and to be able to put on an in-person event. So whatever that takes, if your regulations, or if you want to say, hey, we can put on the event, but we can't have a beer garden or a barbecue, we would rather put on an event without those things so that people can come, run their event, go to their car, and leave, if that's what it's going to take. But to touch base on some of your other questions, where the porta-johns will be, those will be, we propose to put them in the same place we have in the past, which is basically right where the boat parking is. There's a grass kind of where Dave's is at. There's a little a little strip of grass right there where we've always put them, and it's kind of right across the street from the park. Other ways we're planning to keep people separate, those safety ambassadors and the chalk, that's mainly because there will be the most people in an area before the race, and so those will keep people 6 to 10 feet apart and enforcing the masks at all times. So, did we address all the questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes.
It doesn't have anything to do with the COVID requirements or state of emergency, but where on the island are the runners going to be? Are they going down North Shore Drive West? Yeah. Okay.
So they come over the bridge
Right.
on the Sunset, left in front of Sunset Inn, right on the 6th. The 5K turns around and comes right back. The half marathon goes ahead and down North Shore, all the way down the front, up to 40th, back North Shore, east, yeah, and back over the bridge. Once they get back over the bridge, they go up High Market, up 904, Georgetown, through Sea Trail, Shoreline Drive, back into the park.
Okay.
That's the half marathon.
I have a concern from a previous run. I think it was in 2016. For people who live on the island full time, it was a real hardship at certain times. And one that I personally experienced was I and a friend had been at another location, could not get back into I couldn't get into her driveway to let her out because of the runners. Couldn't do it. When I got to my house, I couldn't get in my driveway because of the runners. Had to wait a very long time. And my neighbor had an emergency with his dog, and I don't know how you feel about animals, but our pets, our dogs, are like members of our family. He could not get across the bridge for an hour and a half to get his dog to a vet. His dog was dying. These are hardships on the people that live on the island, and we're either confined to our homes the whole time or whatever. What plans do you, and maybe the chief could help address that, what can we do to help those people that need to move in and out of their properties?
Jan, I'd like to say that I'm sorry for all of that. 2016 was very early on in our race, and I believe our start-finish line was still on the island at that point, which did create a lot more congestion. And I do think that we've made some great improvements. We can always make more improvements, but that's nothing that we set out to want to have happen.
Thank you. I wasn't here in 2016, so I can't speak to that either. I came in 2017, and I believe I ran the race in 2018, the first time I ran it. I can say as a runner that I know that unless something gets in my way, I'm not stopping. So on North Shore Drive, if there's an issue there with a car trying to get in or out, if I see it just sitting there, I'm going to run right by it. However, I also know as a runner, I'm going to lose that fight if the car pulls out in front of me. As far as traffic on the bridge, we made some changes as to how we get vehicles across the bridge in both directions because there was a significant delay that I noticed in the first year that I was here, to the point that we started using a police vehicle with its lights on to escort the traffic either coming on the island or going off the island. So having to wait to get over the bridge is a thing of the past. There's no way that we can station somebody throughout the entire race course. And especially at the start of the race, the first thing they do is go over the bridge and onto the island. So there's a lot of people kind of huddled up until people start to get tired and they stretch out more. But I can tell you, if you pull your vehicle out, they're not going to run into the side of it. As a runner, I assure you that. Another thing you could do is dial 911, send a police officer. We'll help anybody get out of their driveway if they feel that they're stuck because of the large amount of runners. And of course, if there's a medical emergency, that's going to take priority. If we have to shut the race down to get medical personnel to a certain location, I don't think they would argue with that either. That's going to be priority one.
Thank you.
Yeah, also for the proposal this year, because we changed from having a strict start time to a start wave, basically it gives 30 minutes for someone to start in a race, spreading people out a lot more. Our proposal this year is actually not to shut down any traffic on the bridge. It's coning the actual sides so that runners would be in a coned on and off, but also leaving the bridge completely open during the race. That'd be for this year with the waved start. And which is also makes a huge impact if you're familiar with how races typically start. People are right here next to each other at the start of a race. Everyone will be spread out one by one in a single file line, much like Disney World has their lines right now. They run forever, but they go really fast and keep people separate.
So could you further explain that wave start?
Yeah.
I mean, if you've got what, 3 different races?
Yep, so we start out with a half marathon, then a 5K, then a 1 mile. And the half marathon is always starts first because it's the longest race. You want to get people out first. We start with an elite heat, people that are running, say, an hour and 12, hour and 15 minutes in that half marathon. They're really, really fast runners. They're going to be separated at the beginning, and then after that, it's basically a gun start. Everyone wears a bib with a chip on the back. That chip gives them an official time, whether they start 10 minutes after that gun start, 20 minutes after that gun start, or right at that. As they're kind of separated back in a long line, when they reach that start line, that starts their time. And so we can separate people out for 20 or 30 minutes, however long it takes, as they're walking towards the start, keeping physical distancing. Our safety ambassadors will keep them separate. And then when they get to that starts their time.
So just to be clear, you've got this line marked out, everybody's spaced out 6. So each individual person has their individual start time?
Yeah. Yeah, they have a bib that
they I understand the bib in that, and so it clocks it through.
Exactly.
So they walk up 6 feet apart, And you kind of tap each one of them each time or something, give them a signal, and and that person takes off.
Yeah, the way the technology works now, there's a big mat that goes across where our start would be actually in the street right there, right in front of Dave's. Once they walk up to it, the mat across the floor reads their chip time, and they get off running. When they come back, they come into the park. There's a different mat that reads that, and it's all done with computers and the technology there. And we contract out a timer for all of our races who's familiar with doing all that.
Okay. And Boat Landing has given you permission to use their parking lot and run around their lot and all that?
They've definitely been supportive of the race in the past, and with approval, we would definitely make sure that we have that approval through them. If not, we would rearrange where our start queue would go.
Let somebody else ask some questions for a while.
All the runners, when they start, at the starts, they'll have their mask on, and they can't take them off until they get to a...
Until they have crossed the start line and are out by themselves, they can take their mask off. Before they cross the finish line and come into the chute there, they will have to put it back on. Sorry. Yes, so runners, before they start, will have the mask on. After they cross the start line and get out by themselves, they can take it off. Before they finish and enter the finisher chute, they will have to have it back on. We've found in the 2 races we have put on that runners are so thrilled to have an event that they are very cooperative.
I think this race is a great event for Sunset Beach. Puts us in the spotlight for a while and brings a lot of people in. I know 5 or 6 town residents that run this every year it's been. I know people from out of town that run it every year that it's been. And I see no reason not to approve this. I just think it's, there's more benefit than there is negative to this. I thought they've always been well run. You know the race is going to be that day. It's advertised and on the town websites. And in the past, I just plan around that race. And do I get slowed down some in traffic? Yeah, but you're prepared for that. So I don't see any reason not to approve it.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Board.
So I'm supportive of having a race. I think we're all tired of being restricted in what we can do and where we can go and things for the past year or more. But there are concerns about COVID, obviously. There's a more virulent strain out there now, a more contagious strain. There's no reports that it's here in North Carolina, but I'd assume that it's here someplace. So there's a lot of concern about that. I think you have more of a chance controlling things with the race portion. So the start of the race, it sounds like you've got some pretty good plans. I think getting people to adhere to your requirements will be a challenge, but the biggest challenge I think will be with the after party. To have 1,000 people congregating in the park with a barbecue and a beer garden and things, I don't know how you're going to control that, really. I think that's a problem. So that's my reservation about it.
So my thought about this, and I brought it up the last time that we discussed the park several months ago, that with regard to the concerts and people using it for fundraising events and things like that, I didn't see a difference between people sitting on a blanket listening to music in a park then, and I don't now. I see no difference between that and people sitting on the beach like they did all summer. Everybody said as soon as we opened up the beach, we were going to have this big explosion in the number of cases, and the beach was full all summer long, longer than normal, and we had 0 explosion in the number of cases. We've had a cycling event come through town previously since we've had this declaration. I'm not aware of anything occurring from that. from my perspective, we should not only allow this event, but other events in the park, or if people want to have a concert and people want to sit there on their blanket or in their lawn chair, it's no different than sitting on the beach. That's my perspective. And we've allowed that to go on all year long.
Councilwoman Harris, did you?
I do have something to say.
Okay.
I think the average age of our citizen that lives in Sunset Beach is something like 62 years old. It's the average age. I think it's a disservice to our citizens that live here to take chances during this period of time. If COVID was not an issue, that would be one thing, but COVID is an issue, like it or not. So I think it's not something we should do.
And like it or not, there are very many of us, regardless of the age of our citizenry. That was the same thing was thrown at us earlier in the year when we decided not to, and we were all scared to death because of the age of our citizens. We haven't had a blow up in our community yet. With all the people in the summer, we heard that time and time again. If the beaches are open, we're going to have this huge blow up, and it hasn't happened. And there are people in our community who are not able to stay at home and have to get out and go to work and have done so.
I understand that.
And so to me, this is no different than me. I'm probably exposed more going to work every day than I would be out there running through the park.
That's your position. I stick to mine.
And I usually don't have a position, but I'm going to on this event. I am 100% for your event in regards to I am for living.
Thank you.
You cannot live yourself scared. I understand older people. I understand because I have a grandmother that's like that. She stays in the house. She does what she needs to do. She orders her groceries. She does that kind of things. But me, myself, I'm out every day. I protect myself, and I expect the person that's around me to protect herself. If I see they're not, I stay away from them. But I'm going to live till I die. And if it's by COVID, then it's by COVID. I understand that. But I'm not going to be sheltering myself and not doing anything in this world. I'm not going to do that. I've done it long enough. I'm for having every event. If you don't want to come, don't come. I understand that. But I think as long as things are safely, we do what the government tells us, we spread out, we follow the rules, what else can we do? But you got to live. And you got to do the things that you enjoy. If not, we're living life for nothing. So I myself, even though I don't have a vote, you have my support to do something. As long as you carry out the steps that you take to be precautious, that's all you can expect. I mean, you can't control people on the daily. I see it every day. I see people that don't wear their mask. I see people that do all kind of crazy things. But I have to protect myself and my family, and that's what I try to do. But I live. I go, and I do. I just want to tell you, I support you.
Thank you very much. And it will all come down to execution. I mean, we have a great plan in place. I think you all have all seen that. And there's tons of studies done about how being outdoors, it drastically reduces any kind of concerns and risk with masks and with distancing. But it's going to come down to execution. And we've proven at 2 events that we can host a very successful race. And at Oak Island, we're using this exact same plan. They got approved there with a very similar distance. Everything's on town property in their park, and planning to execute a great event, and that'll be February 13th. And so we hope that we have y'all's support as well. Thank you for considering us.
Well, we're not finished yet.
Were the other events have a barbecue and a beer garden and all that stuff as well?
We had hot chocolate and coffee and pumpkin pie for the turkey trot. So it's a little different, but we were serving drinks and food. And so, having our volunteers with the proper PPE and having everyone distance while they're... So masks are still required at all times unless you're physically distanced and eating and drinking. If you're not eating or drinking and physically distanced, you have to have your mask on.
Mm-hmm. So everybody goes into the beer garden, grabs a beer, takes off the mask, and enjoys himself. And I'm a beer drinker, and I would do that.
No, it's not a beer garden. Yeah, it's not a beer garden. There's going to be a beer trailer with taps on it. There will be a line queue, just physically distanced, just like our start to our race. Once they get their beer, they have to go enjoy it distanced. And if they're drinking, then they can take their mask off. If they're not, they can't. And so essentially, our beer garden is the whole park.
And to my point, even if it was a beer garden and they weren't going through the steps they're going through, How is that any different than the beach, where everybody's sitting around with their families of 20 people that came down for the weekend with their house? It's the same process if you break it down that way.
Well,
I understand. I'm not saying just let it go free fall if they wanted, and I approved their plan, but it's not different than being on the beach with a bunch of people drinking beer out there.
Well, there is some differences. One is that if you've got a family grouping and the other grouping are staying within around 20 people, they're still within the limit of the 50 people mass assembly that's in the the governor's executive order. And when you pull these people together, you're not talking about groups of 50 people. You're talking about a mass assembly of 1,000 people or so. And when you finish the race, then you're going back into a party type environment, which is different from an athletic event environment that the less restrictive guidance applies to. And so, that's a concern. I am extremely concerned about the COVID-19 situation. I mean, and our zip code is continuing to increase. We've really been fortunate in our little secluded area here that it's actually been since November 11th that we've had a death in our zip code. But we have had an increase of about 40 different cases, which would be about a 25% increase since that time that's going through there.
Can I ask?
The vaccinations are just starting, and that's a concern. So, I'm much more comfortable with your ability to control the race and the start, and I'm much less comfortable with the part of the event that I would enjoy much more, and that's the beer, pizza, and barbecue.
Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Ms. England.
You all are being asked to consider allowing events in the park again that are still in concert with the executive order. You're not being asked
To do the one event.
to approve this specific event. So if you're going to go to that, then you're going to have to approve every single event that comes up in the park. Otherwise, what we're asking you to do is yay or nay for special events to be allowed in the park again, in concert with the executive orders, and rely on your staff to work out the details with the individual organizations to make sure that all of those precautions are met. We are on the ground when we do have these events at the park, and at any point that we as staff feel that we are in jeopardy or that the public is in jeopardy, we have the ability to shut the entire event down.
So are you saying that you think that the staff can handle this?
Absolutely. We don't want COVID either.
I wouldn't think so.
Any more discussion? Any more questions?
Still trying to think. We're talking about now, we already have weddings that we can have in the park, right? Up to certain scales.
Correct. Right now, we are under these precautions that you have in place now, 25 inside, 50 out. We have had a couple of small weddings in the park within these guidelines. The reason we're bringing it back now is basically because of their request and because the executive order has been relaxed to allow for outside events again. And with the spring coming on, we anticipate hearing from other organizations as well.
Well, I think I've made my position pretty clear, so I'd be in favor of adjusting our emergency declaration to be in accordance with the governor's current resolutions and as such, so to allow events in the park again.
Was that a motion?
Sure, yes, we'll make that a motion.
Second?
Do I have any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Thank y'all.
I'm not ready to vote, sorry.
Okay, that's
It's,
fine. Okay,
Thank you
so you
very
got a
much.
no vote, a no, and I guess all three, did you just for?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, you didn't say anything.
No, I didn't say anything.
So we're still at, go ahead.
So we're not being asked whether this event meets the executive order or not. This is whether we're going to implement the executive order. The question of whether this event would be consistent with that is outside of what we're voting for.
Correct. You're depending on staff to work out the details with the specific organizations to make sure that all the protocol in the executive order and that has been directed by this council is adhered to.
So,
okay.
It's not just this event, it's everything coming up in the future.
so then let me ask you again the question. You feel that the after-party portion of this is consistent with the executive order, the way that they presented it? When you look at the picture and the diagrams of the way the layout's going to be, you feel that that meets the executive order?
Yes, I do.
Which executive order?
The one that we're under right now.
Which is,
I don't know what number it is.
I did attach it in the packet. It states how you can have 12 people per 1,000 square feet.
yeah, you
in
have
an outdoor
Executive Order
space.
181, right? December 8, 2020?
Yeah, whatever was in that packet. And it states how there's 12 people per 1,000 square feet if there's not a capacity limit in parks or other athletic events. And,
Okay.
and on that, we would, based on the square footage of the area, we would be a little less than half based on our expected attendance. Half of that, 1 per 12. We'd be 1 per 24.
Then I would be
And then that extrapolates that all of them are going to be spread out over the whole park, not concentrated in a line running.
Yeah, so and that includes the entire event. And as Jonna was saying, how we will have a half marathon first. Basically, as the half marathon goes out on course, that's when the 5Kers start to show up. So it's kind of split in half. So it's really, even less than that with how many people will be in the park at a
It's not
time.
at 8 o'clock, everybody's got to be here at 8 o'clock thing. It's
Yeah,
set
it's
up
like
in
7
sections.
o'clock. 7 o'clock is the half. 8 o'clock is the 5K. And as half marathoners are out on the course, 5Kers are running. 5Kers finish having beer and barbecue, and most of them gone before a lot of the half marathoners come back because that's 13 miles. Yeah, nobody finishes at the same time. We've got all these people finishing over different time periods.
So I'm okay with us supporting following the executive order. This was presented as being whether we're in agreement that this event would be consistent with that. And I do have reservations about the after party. And so maybe this is a test case to see whether what Councilman Phillip says he's comfortable with.
And our fee
So I have
schedule,
reservations, but I'm okay with the executive order being consistent with our policies.
and one of the things that we would do at the staff level that we do have the ability to do is require them to employ a couple of our officers that will meander through the park, that will be able to enforce any of these restrictions of if they're in line to get a beer, they've got a mask on. If they're in line to get barbecue, they've got their mask on. When they get back to their circle of people, then they can take their mask off. But if they're walking from their circle to the beer garden, they've got to have a mask on. We can enforce that they employ a couple of our officers.
Okay.
Can I,
Go ahead, sir.
you done?
Yes.
This is scheduled for March 27th, which is over 2 months away. My wife and I just got scheduled for our vaccinations, and there'll be a lot more people vaccinated by then. And believe me, I'm not taking the COVID lightly. Every time I've been in a doctor's office or in the hospital, it's scary to me, and they're taking all these precautions. that's all inside in small offices or treatment rooms or whatever, operating rooms. If it would make John and Tom, I don't think anything's going to make Jan change her mind, but about any of it. But if we excluded the after event, would that help either of you all?
I can kind of go through the stretching of the mass event guidelines, which is still groups of 50 people for outside, into an outdoor physical activity facility, which is, I think, the justification you're using. This event is a physical activity. Again, once they have crossed that finish line, then it's becoming a social event. And then I don't think it comes anywhere close to meeting the executive order of groups of 50 people. No more for an outdoor event that's in the park. And I think that's kind of where my area of real concern is concerning the COVID. And hiring 2 police officers to run around and enforce, it's not really realistic to expect that that's going to be totally effective. I think even when you have your people standing in line as they get ready to go out in waves at 6 feet apart, you're going to have challenges keeping them all to keep their mask on. But that's a different type of situation. For this particular event, I would be comfortable for the athletic event, the races, not the social stuff afterwards. I did not come prepared to argue or debate on opening the park up for all events. I don't think the situation that applied for events earlier in the year, and even when it went up to 50 people for a mass activity, fits for the type of events, the artesian festivals, fairs that we have in the park. And I myself need to think through that one a little bit further. Which is not what you're asking for. You're asking for a blanket approval. I'm not ready for a blanket approval there. I am comfortable with a conditional approval for the race, but not the after party events.
The way staff looked at the after party was that once they get back to the park area,
Yep.
other than the 2 stations that they're providing for the food and alcohol, it's basically the race is over. There's nothing that prevents 1,000 people from showing up at the park in the next hour to have a picnic with their 50 or less people in tow. It's not like they're coming back to the park to have a concert that they're all going to be gathered around a stage. It's just that they're going to provide 2 trailers in 2 different areas of the park for those people to go and enjoy those amenities and then disperse. But if you're going to make it a conditional on this one, then we'll have to bring every single special event to you for you all to approve.
Or we have a vote later to change the overall rules for the park being consistent.
Correct. But in the meantime, anything would come back to the council for approval, for details and approval. Because this is going to open the floodgate. And Cindy's been putting off people that have been calling, all year. So once this event is allowed, then it's going to open the door for the others that we normally have. The markets, the concert, what am I missing?
But,
The bigger weddings.
no, but wait a second. But to be consistent with the executive order, it would have to be a physical activity. It couldn't be the market type situation, which is allowing 1,000. The density requirement as it's stated in the executive order. So it's not opening it up for that.
Depending on
That-
how you word it.
That
would
would
be if
have
it
to
opens
be
it or not.
consistent with the 50, right?
Whatever the order is today. And
But-
he's having meetings weekly
But when you say
now.
But when you say that it opens up the floodgates for things like the market, that's not what we're talking about here, is it?
It depends on how you word it.
Word what? The
Word the-
words are here in the executive order.
The way you word your state of emergency proclamation. If you just say, you can have a special event as long as it's in concert with the executive order, then of course, we're going to observe the executive order to the fullest extent. But right now, your state of emergency is not written that way. It's written specific to this park, to this area.
So I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. You're saying that in the future, the executive order could change, and therefore that would change the rules.
If you tie if you tie your state of emergency, our local state of emergency, to the governor's executive orders,
To the current executive order.
to the current executive order, then anytime that executive order is amended, it would automatically amend your state of emergency. So if you want to write it that way, then
I would
Yeah,
think
but the
if we
governor's
sign an order, I would think
executive
it would be
orders
wrote
leaves
that
the
way.
municipalities the right to be more restrictive.
correct, it does. And that's what
and-
y'all have done.
Well, actually, I don't think we have, but that's,
I think we've
I
been
think-
following the executive orders.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
we
I
have
think,
been.
and I
Yeah.
think, again, reserving the right to make a change if we don't agree with something, but I think it would be a good policy to just write it so it's tied to the executive order, so that as it changes and as we come out of this, as things lessen or tighten up, whatever, it would automatically become part of our emergency declaration, that we don't necessarily have to haggle it out every single time or change it if we want to follow that.
And you could also appoint one of yourselves to work with staff on approving these events.
well, the Executive Order 181 from December 8, 2020, which was extended by Executive Order 188 on 6 January and is still in effect. On Section 5, page 25, paragraph 5.1, mass gatherings, it says more than 50 people in a single space, to include parades, fairs, festivals, are not allowed. I mean, that's, if you go down to the minute aspects of the executive orders that are there. We have the responsibility, I think, is each time the executive order changes, to sit and discuss, does that impact how we interpret things and what we want to do and how we want to run things in the town? And the last thing I want to do is to be viewed as somebody who's trying to chase away business, recreational, and athletic activities. But what I do strongly believe is the state of emergency remains. We are still there. The COVID infection rates are continuing at a historical high. The immunizations, the rate of positive testing is still high, even though the last 3 days has gone down to 10% from 17% last week. It's still high. COVID ICUs, including in our area here, are near max capacity. We haven't been hit by the new variants, but we're probably going to get it pretty quickly. You know, the positivity rates are still high, they're still sustained. You know, our vaccinations are just starting here in the county. I don't know what they were today, but Friday it was 2,300 vaccinations given and about 400 to 500 second vaccinations, meaning minimal impact. We're not getting much. And the expectation is the next 4 to 6 months are going to be the most dangerous we've ever faced. You know, it's not a good situation. We're still under the modified stay-at-home order that goes through here until the 29th of January, and the governor the week before has always, you know, has consistently through the course of this event been extending. The one time he went and he tried to drop things down, the situation changed, not just in the state, but in the county. So it's extremely serious. You know, I'm not comfortable yet opening it up to our traditional events in the park, the festivals and that. I love those things. You know, I'm the one on this council that's been charged with a conflict of interest of supporting those things in past years. And I'll continue to support them, but I don't think it's time to do it just now. And I don't think it's time to open up and have a after party in there. And I think with the right controls, we can slice off an exception and say, yeah, you can use part of your park to help organize and get your Sunset Beach fun run in and do that for the athletic activity. But the part that I would really like is afterwards, the after party. I don't think we should support the after party. And I'm definitely not ready right now to go on to a vote to open up the park to all normal activities the way we were before COVID.
So a quick question, and not to be belligerent or anything.
Sure.
You mentioned this modified stay-at-home order. Did you stay home over the holidays and see your family? Did anybody come and visit you?
Yes.
Okay. Then you're willing to do that.
And they had COVID tests before they came. They had COVID tests afterwards.
And
I've, you know, tried to avoid almost everything else since. But there are, you know, I have done exceptions, but I haven't done exceptions where I go and join in with a group of 1,000 people.
Right. Well, you're also saying, you've kind of said many times that you're the first person who walks on the beach every day. I mean, there's thousands of people there.
Yep.
So I just point that out.
I have my mask with me. If I go up closer to 6 feet, I put the mask on. If somebody comes up to me closer to 6 feet, I walk in curves to go around other people to keep it clear. I don't use it as a social event. I mean, I miss all of that, and it's a constant source of, call it internal conflict of what am I going to do, what am I not going to do.
May I make a suggestion?
That's where I stand.
I personally stayed here by myself Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
And then that fits your level of not wanting to do any of this. I mean, it's in conjunction.
No, I would. Well,
I'm not saying wanting to, but you have been more, for lack of a better word, not concerned, but afraid of this, and you've stayed home, and you're voting along those lines. Okay, so that's what it makes sense.
I believe in erring on the side of caution.
And that's your choice, and I understand that.
May I make a suggestion?
And I'm not saying I'm being uncautious by any stretch. I'm just trying to point out the fact that we're allowing certain things and other things are not. And this one, to me, running is an athletic ability. I understand if everybody doesn't want to go full bore on concerts and things like that because they don't fit the executive order. But to me, if you're out and you're running, it's.
I'm not arguing with out and running. I'm arguing with the party afterwards.
May I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Please do.
Will you make a motion to approve the race, start and finish, to be allowed at the town park and to leave the state of emergency proclamation the way it states now?
I'll make that motion. So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So just to clarify, Run Sunset Beach will be allowed to start and finish from the town park. There will not be an after party allowed, and any other special events that come before the town will have to come to the town council because the state of emergency proclamation as it stands right now is still in effect. Correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your time.
Thank you very much for your time
Jan,
and
did you
consideration.
vote on that? I'm
I
sorry.
voted aye.
Aye, thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. All right. Moving. Go ahead, sir.
For a clarification, Lisa, the state of emergency is currently consistent with the executive order, or it's more stringent?
I consider it to be in concert with the executive order.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm fine with
All
that.
right, moving on to the new business, discussion and approval of 21-22 budget calendar. Ms. Tara, this was her, but I don't think Ms. Tara is here today. Will it be you, Lisa, or Ms. Sendai? Who will be taking note? Ms. Lisa, okay.
I do apologize. Tara's under the weather today. The budget calendar she has set out for you all is in your packet. All of these meetings that she is proposing are on actual council meeting dates, with the exception of April the 8th. So I need you to approve the budget calendar and schedule the April 8th as a budget meeting.
Does anyone have any conflicts on any of those?
I'm good.
So then this will take the place of a council meeting? Is that what we're saying?
No,
At the
sir.
same
This
time as the council meeting, right?
will be an agenda item
Okay.
on those agendas.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Except for the 8th,
Except for
which is a Thursday.
One question associated with this, but not affecting the schedule itself, is you included in here the budget suggestion form? Could you explain that to everybody, please?
Correct. The budget suggestion form is something that Tara started last year. This will be sent out through the website. It will be placed on the website, and we are asking the public, in addition to you all and anyone else who has a suggestion for you all to consider with the budget, to submit this form.
Is there a drop dead date for this? If we're going to have the discussion on the 16th, do you want to set a date that they should submit them? There's no date on it now that I could find.
Well, you all can consider, any budget suggestions up to the day that you approve the final budget. So I think with that being said, Tara just left it open-ended, so if someone watches your first budget workshop and has a suggestion, then they would still be able to submit that for you all to consider at your next appointed time.
The way I see the budget, that would basically be leaving it open up until April. Because we don't come up, according to this, the first, present the final draft would not be to May the 3rd. So up through April, they would still be able to put in ideas where it could get in for everybody to discuss, right? So there's not no drop down next week.
I would say April 8th, that April 8th meeting. After that, we're kind of locking things in, because on April 20th, we're given the final guidance, so to speak, so that on May 3rd, the budget can be presented to us, and we can decide whether we're comfortable with it. We want to go forward with our public hearing on the 7th of June. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. We will amend the form to include an April 8th deadline.
Maybe April 7th, so we have it by April 8th. We're meeting 9 o'clock on April 8th.
Okay, April 7th.
There's nothing else. Do I have a motion to accept this? This will be our calendar for our 21-22 budget.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Are you going to also send this out on your info at Sunset Beach emails blast? Okay, good.
Next up, moving on, approval for fire department to apply for air pack grant. Chief Hasselmeyer.
All right, next couple items are related to AFG, the Assistance for Firefighters Grant Program. I've applied for a couple in the past. These are a little bit different. The first one, the AirPack grant, I'm looking to do a regional application. Ocean Isle Beach is also looking to join us on that, and potentially Calabash. I got to work out the details of that, but it's 95% funded by FEMA and 5% match. So for this grant, our air packs are going to be needing replaced in the next couple of years, so we're trying to find some grant funding on the front end. Our portion would probably be about $220,000 roughly. So with a 5% match, be, what is that, around $11,000, $12,000. So, and it'd be similar for Ocean Isle Beach, Calabash, if they jump in on the regional application. So they would pay their 5% match, and everything would kind of funnel through us so we can get a group purchasing on air packs. But I'm just asking for your support and me writing the grant and working out the details with our neighbors that want to participate and try to get us that big ticket item.
Anybody have any questions?
Which other, are you opening this up to any of our neighbors or who do you
I've
have
reached out to several. I know Ocean Isle Beach had a discussion about it and is on board. They had a discussion last week at their council meeting. I got to talk a little bit more with Calabash. I've reached out to Grissom Town Fire Department. So I'm gonna work out those details of whoever wants to participate and join in it, and I'll take care of writing it and coordinating it moving forward.
So is there an advantage to having multiple towns fall under the same application?
Typically, a couple advantages. One, interoperability with the equipment, and two, regional applications with kind of the group purchasing thing has some advantage with the application and scoring, and typically regional applications give you a few more points on the application process.
So within the application then, does the grant get split equally, or is it somehow designated so much is for Ocean Isle, so much for Sunset Beach? How does that work?
Yes, with this specific one, air packs, we can only have so many air packs on certain trucks. There has to be a riding position for each air pack, and then a certain number of masks for each person on each department. So it'll be a little bit different depending on riding positions at Ocean Isle versus Sunset versus Calabash and number of firefighters on the staff. So, but pretty close. It's not going to be huge differences between the different departments.
Yeah. So your request would cover all of the anticipated replacing all of our air packs.
Correct.
How many do we have?
We have, put me on the spot right now.
Roughly.
20 something. I don't know if I'm gonna find it right off the top of my head. We'd be looking at 20 or thereabouts. And then a bunch more masks, because you want to get a mask for each firefighter. So masks, air packs, extra bottles. We'd look at getting the rapid intervention team packs, stuff like that. So
the whole kit that goes with it.
Yep.
So is this an all or nothing grant? In other words, if it has to come down to a split, is there going to be any question about who gets what?
No, typically with the air pack grants that I've been involved with in the past, if there's something that's reduced, the grant reviewers would reduce the number of air packs after they, like if I tried to get 40 air packs, but only have 20 riding seat positions, they'd cut it from 40 to 20.
I understand, right.
Sometimes they'd cut, I have to show them how many firefighters I have on the roster. They're not going to give me more mass than that.
What would they give you? Yeah, less. Maybe.
They could,
yeah,
but
yeah.
typically that's not how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's to our advantage if 4 fire departments apply for a grant
Yeah, there is some advantage to it, yes.
to get to increase the number of points. Applying with 3 or 4 fire departments, does that hurt our chance of getting a grant?
I would say no. We could apply on our own. I think we have, it's more advantageous if we do a regional approach. I think for operational compatibility moving forward, and it doesn't hurt us to apply regionally.
Well, I know you're a pretty good grant writer.
I think it helps us all out. It's a big ticket item that all the departments are looking at in the next couple of years. So if we can collaborate and combine efforts and get the federal funding, it'd be advantageous.
Well, I think anytime we can get 95% of the cost covered by somebody else, particularly for safety equipment, fire, police equipment, things like that, I think
Sure.
it's a good effort. And if you need any help writing a grant, I'll be glad to help you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Mr. Mayor, we ready for a motion? Yeah. I move that we direct Chief Hassemeyer to coordinate a memorandum of understanding with interested neighbors, write and apply for the Regional Assistance for Firefighter Grant, AFG, for self-contained breathing apparatus in the coming application period.
For that motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, next up, approval for fire department to apply for turnout gear grant. Again, Chief Hassemeyer.
All right, this one, we can apply for 2 different projects, the regional grant that we just spoke of and another project. When I talked with the deputy chiefs about what other projects we could try to go after and take on, we started talking about the turnout gear extractors. Currently, we have one at Station 1. It's 15 years old, so we're any day, if we have a major problem with it, we may be looking at purchasing a new one, and I'll be before you asking for money. But so we thought about, well, let's try to write a grant to replace it since it's aging, and then especially with some of the challenges of keeping the station separated, training, washing equipment, gear, not only turnout gear, but anything related with the COVID pandemic that's going on too. It's a good opportunity to look at trying to write a grant and getting a second gear extractor to have at Station 2, so we don't have to come to Station 1 to do all that laundry. So this one again too is 95% funded, 5% town match. My plan is to not only request funding for the extractors, 2 extractors, but plumbing and electrical work too, to make it have those contractors do that. So somewhere around $30,000, and
For both of them?
for both of them combined. So this one's significantly less, probably a match around $1,500, all said and done.
I feel the same way about somebody else paying 95%.
Anyone else?
No, I'm good with it.
Do I hear a motion that we allow the chief to apply for the Assistance for the Firefighters Grant, AFG, for 2 turnout gear extractors and the electrical plumbing that would go along with it in the upcoming application period?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up is our disposition of directives for our February 1st, 2021 meeting. We've already added that will be in for the police chief Claymore to come back in on that one, and also the one for the second meeting, which if you got a date for that one, Lisa?
16th.
16th of February, we'll be dealing with trying to see where we're at and hopefully get something in order. Does anyone have anything else that needs to be added?
You can
You'll
delete
let-
number 3. The planning board has taken that over,
Okay.
and we'll be sending you text amendments over the next several months.
Do we put all the budget amendments, budget meetings on the disposition?
I'll include those.
Okay. I'd kind of like to, just as a pro forma thing, to have an item for a review of the state of emergency situation. I think we should basically, I think at each meeting we should say, is there anything to discuss? And hopefully the situation will improve, that we
Anything else?
we could do something positive.
Anyone have anything else?
Nope.
All right. Not, we'll move on. The public comments. We'll see if anybody's back there. There were some, but I think everybody's back.
I'll check.
Double check.
Nobody.
Okay, so there's nobody for that. And then we have closed session. Do I have a motion we go into closed session? Have a second?
Second.
All right.
How about taking a 10-minute recess
fine.
till we get there? Are we going in the back?